Uruguay, officially known as the Oriental Republic of Uruguay, is located in the southeastern region of South America, and it is bordered by Argentina to its west and Brazil to its north and east. Uruguay is home to 3.3 million people, of whom 1.8 million live in its capital and largest city, Montevideo. With an area of approximately 176,000 square kilometers, Uruguay is geographically the second smallest nation in South America after Suriname. The country has traditionally been known for its advanced education, social security systems, and liberal social laws, and was the first nation in Latin America to establish a welfare state. In recent years, Uruguay is increasingly attracting attention, thanks to the charismatic figure of its president, Mr. José Mujica, who was a Nobel Peace Prize nominee for the second time this February. His latest nomination marked yet another occasion when the Uruguayan president, who has been called the world's poorest president for his humble lifestyle, had made international headlines. Uruguay made headlines again for its pioneering decision to legalize the marijuana trade, the first country in the world to do so. This heroic move, among other path-breaking reforms such as same-sex marriage and abortion rights, led The Economist to vote it 2013 Country of the Year. Uruguay was also named by several organizations as the second most democratic country in South America in 2013, while International Transparency named it the continent's least corrupt country.
En esta región somos un país amortiguador y puente.
Our country acts as a shock absorber and a bridge as well, trying to moderate the social injustices of Latin America. But this isn't something new. We've always been a small country with better distribution of wealth in a very rich but very unfair continent. With Brazil, we're trying to implement a policy of closeness, of common infrastructures, of interdependence. With Argentina, we think it'll be more difficult, but it's a country that cannot avoid all the regional dilemmas. Globalization is not a joke. It implies a whole universe of transformations that are just beginning. And that means a totally different world. But we're still thinking from one general election to the next. Meanwhile, the world generates a whole agenda of problems that no country can face alone. And that agenda needs the world governments working together. But instead of that, there is only the fragmented arrogance of each nation. We have to accept that the development of productive forces has made globalization prevail. But globalization has to be controlled so that it doesn't control us. The statespersons of the Central world seem to be blind to this. They only see their own neighborhood. National leaders should live and share values with the majority of their population, not with the minority. Otherwise, people withdraw and stop believing. And what's to be of us in a world with no convictions? Politics are a very serious thing. Human beings are political animals because they're gregarious and social. Humans cannot live in isolation. One must respect what is different and try to negotiate and coexist with it. That's the only way to live in peace. The policy that we implemented during these last few years was focused on the value of what we were selling abroad, given favorable international circumstances. But we were also distributing wealth. Salary increases have been constant and problematic for us as well, because when you give over here, people over there get demanding. Those are the normal contradictions in our society. Uruguay is today a small yet stable economic powerhouse. A decade of impressive growth looks set to continue thanks to smart policies and a very attractive investment environment. But things weren't always this way. Economic problems in neighboring countries, such as Brazil and Argentina, spilled over in 2002, leading to a sharp economic contraction, a banking crisis, high unemployment, falling GDP, and rising inflation. But Uruguay picked itself up, dusted itself off, implemented reforms, and returned to growth. Today, this small country is stronger than ever.
Right now, Uruguay has a very strong financial position, a very comfortable financial position in terms of the burden of public debt. Net debt is just 23% of GDP, and the amortization profile of the debt is very comfortable too. You have a perspective of 15 or 20 years with no much urgencies in terms of financing needs. So from the financial side, we have our house in order. In economic growth, Uruguay has been growing at an average rate of 5.7% in the last 9 years. If you also consider that population essentially doesn't grow in Uruguay, that represents essentially the growth per capita. So it's a growing economy with the macroeconomic landscape absolutely balanced. Since 2006, investment has been growing significantly. Right now, total investment is 23% of GDP. Foreign investors sees Uruguay as a very reasonable platform for producing and doing businesses. But again, looking at the regional and the global market. In 9 or 10 years, we could take 1/4 of the population out of poverty in this process of a growing economy, but also a process of inclusive growth, because we accompany active, productive policies also with very focused social policies. And we have right now the lowest rate of unemployment in history since we have records. Exports grew significantly in 1 decade. And also the number of markets and the number of items we export grew significantly.
Desde el punto de vista de la supervisión y regulación.
As for the supervision of regulation, there was a significant effort as to the stability of the financial system, a condition that international investors consider very closely. It's obvious that a country with a stable financial system is more attractive, but macroeconomics is vital, and the central bank is closely involved with monetary policies concerning inflation rates, all of which contributed strongly to the macroeconomic stability that we have now. For a small country like Uruguay, with a completely open economy, the volume of capital flows we've been receiving, specifically in financial investment portfolio, was very important and required the involvement of the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank, which through a series of mechanisms alleviated the exchange rate volatility that was affecting appreciation and threatened to impact on exports. These are complex issues, and as all issues of economic policy, they have their pros and cons. The reception of funds created a strong pressure, but also created a cushion of international reserves. If you consider the level of reserves, the structure of public debt, much lower than other foreign debts, and the long-term conditions, any investor or analyst will reach the same conclusion. Uruguay, as for macroeconomic soundness and balance of payments, is perfectly healthy. The system's reliability and transparency, the control exercised by the Central Bank of Uruguay, the stable equity deposit interdependence, and the levels or protection established by the central bank are a set of features that make the Uruguayan system very reliable. Here I also include two elements that are essential to the core business of a banking organization: human resources and computer systems, to handle the operational structure. Agricultural development has been very important in our country. More than 600,000 acres are insured. From the total area of plantations, 50% are insured, and I guess we can reach about 60% in the next few years. We have an agreement with the Ministry of Livestock, Agriculture and Fisheries, and through subsidies from the Ministry, we do cover all insurance that is not business-related, but they are very important social coverage. Historically, the cornerstone of Uruguay's economy has always been based on agriculture. A fertile land with snaking rivers, vast grasslands and a stable climate, the country is the garden of the continent. Much of its 176,000 square miles is given over to agriculture, and around 15% of the population is employed in this sector. Uruguay's main agro-industries consist of beef, soybeans, dairy products, wheat and fish. Uruguay exports beef to more than 80 countries, and this industry represents a quarter of all exports. The Uruguay Natural brand, which markets beef products as an eco-friendly, sustainable brand globally, has allowed the country to penetrate markets across the world. A primary challenge of the 21st century for Uruguay is the sustainable expansion of agro-industry based on innovation and technology, and further improvements in the nation's infrastructure. Food production today requires added value and innovation. Agriculture needs genetic breeding, supplies, management, agricultural technology. A transport system is essential to reach the ports, and you know how important the cattle industry is in Uruguay. But today, our main export product is soy, followed by meat, milk and rice. The great hygienic status of Uruguayan meat is achieved due to hard work. As you know, our meat is 100% traceable. It is impossible to increase productivity and food production sustainability if we do not apply innovation, technology and knowledge. Uruguay is one of the most competitive countries in milk production, and the best example is the development of the dairy industry in Uruguay. We have less land, more cows and fewer producers. How is this accomplished? Thanks to technology, innovation and increased productivity. This last decade, we've had an annual growth of 7%. Last year was excellent. We produced over 2,300 million litres with our 3,100 producers. It's an important moment. We sold 240,000 tons in international markets. Last year, we sold $970 million. And this year, if international prices don't go down, we intend to sell more than $100 million. We are privileged to be one of the largest food producers in the world.
Nuestros viñedos hoy son el 100%.
Today, our vineyards are 100% certified, with a wine matrix created in the 80s and 90s, suited to the market demand. This is a very dynamic sector, so our present development is related to the very concept we are working for. And we believe in making one more effort towards reconverting the sector. And that's our story. Uruguay is the land of Tannat. As we have said, the Tannat strain, when blended with other varieties, has a simply wonderful performance. Our target markets are England and the Netherlands. We have had very good experience in Canada. Brazil was a long-time strategic market for us, and today we are focusing very much on the United States. The country not only earns revenue through the exports of its agricultural produce. Uruguay's tourism sector is a significant contributor to the country's foreign exchange earnings, and it represents 6% of GDP and employs 8% of the country's workers. Today, tourism in Uruguay is a $2 billion industry that pulls in nearly as many visitors as there are residents. The industry is ripe for further diversification from traditional beach destinations, such as the country's well-known Punta del Este resort, to the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Colonia del Sacramento.
Uruguay today offers tourism throughout the whole country. We no longer talk about tourism just on the Atlantic coast, which was the tradition. Nowadays, there is a development in tourism and plans of development in all of Uruguay. In the past, when we went abroad, we had to explain what was Uruguay, where it was, that it wasn't Paraguay, that it's located between Argentina and Brazil. There was a big gap of knowledge. Today, this has changed dramatically. There's no doubt that this is the consequence of the presence of a president who has located us in the world, and also, I think, of a set of decisions that Uruguay has taken related to human rights, same-sex marriage, the decriminalization of abortion, recently the regulation, not legalization, of cannabis. Well, all these very important measures have helped locate Uruguay in the world. If you observe our two government periods since the ruling of the Frente Amplio party from 2005 to 2014, we have won 1 million tourists more, a number that for a country of 3,250,000 inhabitants means a lot. Uruguay has in Punta del Este a quite glamorous and sophisticated destination, and there we have a product that enables us to capture wealthy tourists from Sao Paulo, Argentina and Europe.
We are a very open-minded country, integrating outsiders just as if they were Uruguayan citizens. We are open-minded, we have no racial problems, and there is an extraordinary cultural exchange. Today, tourists from Argentina and Brazil attend the ballet and the opera season. When we talk about micro-segmentation of experiential tourism, we have many sectors within the experience. This one, of cultural experience, not called just culture, has also become a distinguishing element for our country. An element that always characterized Uruguay. Uruguay may be one of the smallest countries in Latin America, but what it lacks in size, it makes up for in ambition. The government is allocating notable resources to ports, roads and railways, intensifying its commitment to providing quality transport and logistics infrastructure. The government has pledged considerable funds to improve connectivity by upgrading roads and railways. Investment plans total $2.5 billion in 2013, a figure that is expected to increase when private-public partnerships are created for this purpose. It has also rolled out Infrastructure Uruguay 2030, a very comprehensive program that seeks to attain major improvements in the country's energy, ports, roads and railways.
This government passed a law that allows a sort of public-private participation in a particular set of activities and, what is in our interest, in infrastructure projects. Specifically, we have been working on the development of transportation infrastructure projects, mainly of roads, which is the most advanced project in terms of public-private participation. We've also studied the application of this mechanism to the railroad line linking Algorta with Fray Bentos is a port of bulk cargo export as well, but more importantly, it is where one of the paper mills is established. Speaking of road connectivity, Uruguay is a country that has a national road network of almost 9,000 kilometers long. To this, we must add the departmental roads that are about 40,000 kilometers long. So the connectivity conditions are suitable. The INALOG, this is National Institute of Logistics, has just returned by the end of March from the US, visiting mainly Miami but also Savannah and Atlanta, with the aim of promoting Uruguay as a regional logistics hub and getting the country to be known in certain circles, trying to show that Uruguay could provide a gateway to the region.
Uruguay is in a cutting-edge position in the field of telecommunications in Latin America. At this moment in time, the figures are very important in terms of penetration and quality of service. In Uruguay, 58% of its population has direct access to the internet, while the regional figure is 37%. Furthermore, with an average of 15.18 megabits per second downstream, Uruguay became the country with the highest broadband speed in Latin America.
¿Qué ha hecho ante los últimos años? El presidente Mujica estableció una meta en su discurso.
President Mujica set a goal in his first address of 2010. Among the many established, one of them was that all households could be connected to the internet. Then Antel, as a tool of our people, vowed to work towards that goal. And so we carry fibre optic to households in a very special project where the company does not charge for the connection of the optical fibre. We even install the fibre optic modem and just charge the services running on that fibre. In keeping with the project of fibre optic for households, Antel is already building a new Tier 3 data centre that will have a capacity for 1,000 racks. This project connects with the project of fibre for homes because we're building the best national telecommunications infrastructure and we are providing a secure storage capacity for it. This is the basis for the construction of the cloud the Uruguayan way. This is not enough because that cloud needs Uruguayan content. So, this is meant to be the infrastructure to facilitate young developers a place in the country to locate their content. For instance, a Tier 3 data center of these dimensions with Antel prestige and the prestige of Uruguayan telecommunications is a benchmark for the region. Because if I'm going to make a software venture in Chile and I need a contingency site, it's great to have it in Uruguay. The same if I do it in Brazil or Argentina. This also locates Uruguay on a map of interesting new businesses. We can start seeing opportunities and we've reached a point of maturity and turnover that makes it necessary to get outside borders to keep on growing.